Welcome back to another episode of Straight Facts. It's Wednesday. You know who I'm joined by? Jessica Black is here. How are you? Jay?
I'm good. I'd be better if I had more than like 30 minutes to get ready for the show. That's Terry's fault, by the way. Didn't let me
Well,
know that the show time went up. Didn't let me know that the show times
yeah.
were changing. So
Listen,
yeah, blame it on
you
Terry.
you want to work in the UK industry but live in LA. You're getting up early. That's on you. Don't blame me. Like we ain't
This
us
is my one
Europeans.
day that I sleep in. The one day that I sleep in, and you took that away.
I don't care. Like end of the day, just get up, get to work. This is what it's all about. Viewers, I hope you're good. Listeners on our podcast, a big thank you to each and every single one of you as well. If you haven't done it yet, I'm actually going to pin the link in the live comment sections. It's already in our description. Make sure you're following our podcast because you might miss some of our shows. We're really going to realign them very soon. Straight facts, top six, match reactions, and we are bringing back to the Football Terrace the individual club shows. So that United show, that Chelsea show, that Tottenham show, etc., that Arsenal, right
Are
the way
we
to
going to do a city show? Didn't we
yes,
talk about that?
we are doing a That City show as well.
That city
That
show?
Man City show is coming to the terrace. So yeah, that's absolutely happening. Terry's a ruthless. It's not ruthless. I'm not a ruthless boss to say to somebody, get up and get to work in a polite way.
An hour, like I wake up at 6, and then can you be ready an hour? No, I can't. Not fully. So this is the product that you've gotten because of this man over here.
Okay. A few people saying, Terry, you're harsh on City fans. No, I just said we're starting this podcast. How's that harsh? Some of you are weird, man. Some of you are weird. Some of you are very strange people to me. But we've got a packed agenda on today's show. Really good stuff. We're going to be speaking Man United versus Atletico. I do need to point out to people, it's Atletico, not Atletico. People keep calling them and it's but Atletico Madrid versus Man United. We're going to be speaking Felix to Arsenal, which is very intriguing to me. I need to get Jess's take on the big Arsenal conspiracy as well. The big Arsenal conspiracy is still dominating Gooner headlines everywhere. That's all I'm seeing. Even Jess is retweeting the conspiracy propaganda everywhere. And then we're going to talk about the conspiracy, João Felix as well. And we're also going to touch today on Lukaku out. Lukaku out pushed every single caller we had on the terrace last night wanted Lukaku gone. The level of tweets for Lukaku not to be back in the team, Kai Havertz to start, to be moved on. We want to get your take on this as well, people. We want your views. We want your opinions. We'll always prioritize our super chats and our member chats in terms of questions for Jess and I. And I think Lukaku's maybe a good place for us to start, actually, in terms of the show, in relation to what's kind of going on with him. I mean, Chelsea won last night. They looked very good, more fluid. Kai Havertz scored with his 8th touch of the game. It just beautiful. Football is the best. Honestly, Martin Scorsese, Steven Spielberg, Chris Nolan. Do you know what I mean? Eat your hearts out, because football is the best scriptwriter in the world. It really is. You couldn't write a line like that. But a lot of Chelsea fans now want Lukaku out, Kai in permanently. Do you understand where they're coming from, or do you think this is a little bit of an overreaction?
I don't think they ever really got over the whole Inter Milan talking bad about Chelsea thing. I don't think that ever really went away. I think it was kind of swept under the rug, and people acted like they didn't care anymore. But once you have a player that's kind of that heavily ostracized by the fan base and has a microscope on them the way that Lukaku does, all it's going to take is one bad game or whatever to reignite those same feelings. And so going back to that interview that he had, and then now his not so great form following that game where he had like 8 touches and that's it, all the next player that played in that position needed to do was probably just have a decent game. But Kai Havertz happened to like score a goal, and they looked a lot more fluid. And we've spoken about this before, that Chelsea tend to look better with the players that can play more fluid football up front, the players that could create and score goals. the Mason Mounts and the Kai Havertz and the Pulisic and the ZX, those players, when they can interchange and kind of create and score goals, Chelsea looks so much better. And then you drop Lukaku in there and it just doesn't feel the same. And you put that on top of the fact that maybe a lot of Chelsea fans are still distrusting of him because of his interview. It was always going to end up this way. But so I think it's fair to feel this way. Like, I feel like if I can put myself in Chelsea's shoes, I don't want to, but if I had to, I'd be like, oh yeah, like I'm not feeling him, especially with the price tag and all that was meant to come with this world-class striker. But I did see, so I don't know who tweeted it. I think you might have retweeted it. It was a Chelsea fan basically saying that because Lukaku is a world-class striker, Tuchel needs to do more to bring him into the fold. And I kind of feel that there's a little bit of an element there as well. Did Tuchel actually want Lukaku, and is it too easy for him to shove him to the side because that wasn't his signing? And could he not be getting more out of this? Because before the season started, he was a world-class striker. Remember, we sat here talking about transfers. He was world-class. This was the guy. He was going to score tons of goals. Is Tuchel not responsible for trying to get more out of this signing? And are we letting him off of the hook a little bit because we just don't like Lukaku anymore? You know?
Well, yeah, I hear you. I mean, the comment from this account, essentially, when you kind of read through this, as we can see here, says that Chelsea and Tuchel need to understand they sign a world-class star who's a goal-scoring machine. If it doesn't work, maybe the environment isn't the best for it to work. Short term, it's Tuchel who needs to take a step towards Lukaku. And I do understand. I don't know who this person is. I'm just Simon Phillips. I know the person who said it. I don't know who that person is, and I shared it because I wanted to get people. It's what we do at the Terrace. It's about generating fan opinion, and I wanted to know what people thought about it. And I kind of read that, and I think, no, I understand. Like, Tuchel shouldn't be changing his system to get the best out of Lukaku. I have to stay true to myself. A club creates a system. They hire a manager to implement that system. And of course, there'll be some give and some take in that. You're never going to find a manager that wants to play his team in the exact same way that a club does. But you need an 80, 90% match. You shouldn't then go, right, we're going to sign a player, and therefore a system that's been very successful for Chelsea so far. It's got them. Even though they're not in the title race, it's the best league campaign they've had since they won the league last, in terms of they're going to make top four, no questions. Every other year since they won the league, the top four has been, are we going to make it or are we not? League Cup finalists, world champions, Super Cup champions, Champions League champions. They just, they've conceded 14 goals in 18 Champions League games. They're a phenomenal team, and I still think there's a level for them to elevate to. This is about Lukaku adapting to that, for me, to that system. It's not as though Tuchel has 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 players that aren't getting it. And there's an element of, right, I've got to change my system because the majority of my team can't playing it. It's basically Lukaku. They do need some more prolific players up front. That there isn't, all the goals can't be put on him. Hudson-Odoi doesn't score enough. Pulisic is never, isn't fit enough. Even Kai Havertz, he's great at the clutch moments. He needs to add more goals to his game. So Lukaku isn't solely responsible, but the overall play, they just look better with it. I'm seeing the same issues with Lukaku at Chelsea as I saw at Man United. He is a great player on the counter-attack, and he's an excellent player when he was at Everton and West Brom in the Prem, because nobody plays low block against those teams. So he's got loads of space to run into behind and do what he's good at. When he's up against, I used to feel this way. Arsenal got linked with Jamie Vardy many years ago, and I always thought Jamie Vardy would be poor at Arsenal because teams sit back deep against you. The majority of teams, even now, Arsenal have gone through all this turmoil of being this awful team. Go back and look at footage of your team over the majority of the season since you've been quote unquote bad. Teams still sit back against you. Teams don't open up still against Arsenal willy-nilly. I thought Vardy would struggle. And the same with Lukaku. He just can't play in teams that are up against low blocks 90% of the time. And of course, you'll have good moments. Of course, you'll score goals at times. Of course, you'll have purple patches. But I don't think you're going to get the West Brom, the Everton, or the Inter Milan Lukaku at a Man United, at a Chelsea, at an Arsenal. I'm not even sure you'd get someone like him playing at his best at a Man City, because you have to be technically proficient on the ball at Man City in any role that you're in. Lukaku just isn't that guy. And we were all hoodwinked, including myself. I thought he'd come into this Chelsea side and be that finishing, that cherry on top of the icing on top of the cake. He isn't. I think he's made it worse. I think the interview, you're right. The interview's lingering. The interview is there still in every single which way. And I understand Tuchel kind of protected him in the media this week, saying that it's not the right time to laugh at him. Chelsea fans angry at Sky for kind of the 7 touches video. Why would you do that to him? Listen, the media's job is to spark conversation. So don't expect the media in those circumstances to like give Lukaku up. They're never going to give £100 million player a pass, you know, unless you're 100 million, you're in a team that's top of the league, flying high, and there's been no problems. You know, Jack Grealish is kind of getting away with it, but you know, other big name signings, Jadon Sancho hasn't got away with it. There's a lot of scrutiny on him as an example. Paul Pogba went through exactly the same thing, and I'm pretty sure if Harry Kane goes in the summer for anything around £100 million, there's going to be a microscope over that guy around, you know, what are you doing and how are you delivering? So yeah, I get Chelsea fans that want him gone. I just think they've got to temper themselves because he's going to play football this season. I wouldn't even be surprised if he starts against Liverpool on Sunday. If I'm being absolutely honest, I think he might start in that game.
Yeah, I mean, he's not going anywhere in the short term, so you just have to hope you can get the best out of him. I still think that, you know, there could be a better version of Lukaku available to Chelsea if the environment allows it. So I think there's a little bit that both groups can come together. Tuchel can come together a little bit towards Lukaku, and Lukaku can come a little bit towards Tuchel, and they could figure out a way to get him scoring some more goals. But ultimately, when I see him playing, I'm just thinking Chelsea are just going to be too dominant, and they're going to be the type of team that needs technicians up front. Obviously, they need like a devastating goal scorer. But when we look at center forwards that are like have really good touches, we're talking about the Harry Kanes of the world and stuff. And that's kind of what they need. They need somebody that can operate in small spaces, and he just doesn't have that. And so you can't manufacture a high line, you know, and you can't say, okay, whoever you're going to be playing against, Juventus, I need you to play in a high line for me so that Lukaku can run in behind you. That's just, you know, it's just not going to happen, you know. So I don't know if it works long term, but short term, I do think he can get some more goals. He looks, I know you're not supposed to look at body language, but looking at him on the bench was just like, he doesn't look happy. What player would be happy on the bench? But you know what I mean? It feels like a bad situation. So we'll see what happens, but he is going to play some games. So, you know, there has to be a way to get some more goals out of that.
Yeah, I hear you on that. Terry, world class means that you perform in every place in the world, Premier League, Champions League, big games. So he's not world class, it's Serie A class. He can't do everything versus low blocks. Look, I understand where you're coming from, but remember, it's horses for courses sometimes. You know, Mo Salah's been world class since he's been back at Liverpool, but he wasn't world class the last time he was here. You know, there are players that have been world class in one place and then move clubs and then not being. There is world class is such an interesting conversation and debate. Because there's 1,000,001 definitions for it. If there was one overriding definition and everything had to fit that criteria, it'd be easy, but it's difficult.
Well, I mean, based on that criteria, you could say like, that's why you can't say, okay, you have to be world-class in every place, you know, because some players never get to the Premier League, but we know they're world-class.
Well, you could look at it this way. He hasn't had a good year in France so far. Does that mean that Messi was never world-class?
Or like even Lewandowski, like he hasn't been in the Premier League yet, but we all know that he's world-class. Like, you know what I mean?
Well, Lewandowski's an interesting one because I don't believe there's Bundesliga tax or Serie A tax. I just think there's horses for courses, and some people suit the national way that some leagues are, the speed. And people often heard Rio talking about the speed of the Premier League. And I saw people on Twitter going, but the players aren't faster. I'm like, oh, you dullards. Like, honestly, people like this are allowed to breed. I mean, it doesn't mean the speed of the individuals. It means the pace of the game, how fast the ball moves from one end of the pitch to the other, essentially. The Premier League's faster. You play against more teams that play low blocks, fewer high lines. All these things matter. The Bundesliga tax is weird because you have people say Bundesliga tax on Werner, therefore you can't take the league seriously. And then these same people will say Lewandowski should win the win the Ballon d'Or. And I'm like, but if Bundesliga tax is real and you tax everybody that achieves something in Germany, then you have to take away things that Lewandowski's done. No, he's exempt. That's why I hate that kind of conversation, because it's nauseating to me. It's, for me, I rate this. There's top 4 leagues in Europe. If you're doing it in those top 4 leagues, I think you can be in Ballon d'Or world-class conversations. I do. But then, it's like my definition of a great manager. You've got to have won back-to-back league titles in the Champions League. Some people reject that. Why? Because their favorite manager might not have achieved that exact thing. So it's like, no, that can't be the criteria. They'll make the criteria something else. That the criteria for being world-class or being a top-class manager, whatever it is, people's definitions normally bend and yield to get their favorite person in through the gateway, and then everyone who's in it, there's a debate over. And that's why it's very hard to actually ever get a clear definition, because everyone wants their favorite in. Nobody would vote for there to be a fixed matrix of things that you have to have done and achieved to be considered world class, because you're always going to have someone miss out, right? Someone's always going to not quite tick 2 or 3 boxes. He didn't win the Champions League, or he didn't retain a title, or he never scored over, Michael Owen never scored over 20 league goals. Does that mean he wasn't? But he won the Ballon d'Or. So which is it? Is he a world-class? Like the 20 goal a season mark in league goals is almost like the standard used phrase for a goal scorer. You're not a prolific world-class striker unless you're scoring 20 league goals a season. Michael Owen won the Ballon d'Or, but he never scored 20 league goals in a season. What does any of that mean? Everyone's definition changes all the time. It's a mad one to me. It's a mad one.
Well, that just kind of kills the whole football conversation when you make it a specific definition, right? That just kills off the conversation. You can talk about, it's an interesting conversation to have what the actual requirement is, but if you set it, then where does football debate really come in? Because you either make it or you don't, so we have to just keep it open to interpretation, really.
Yeah, absolutely. But then at the same time, it's hard to be like it. It's more the way people react to like, oh no, but I think Joe Bloggs is world class. Yeah, but he ain't done these 3 or 4 things. Yeah, but he's done these 3 or 4 that your guy hasn't. And it's more people accepting other people's opinion as opposed to them being different. Interesting comment here from Mobility Troop. It says Terry in big capitals. Get rid of these children on here and your show might be taken seriously. What children?
Me?
Jesse's 33 years old. She's not a child. I don't know what you mean, Mobility Troop. If you mean like people that are commenting in the section, listen, bro, I watch a lot of people's content. There's a lot of mad stuff that gets said. If you're focusing on the comment section and not listening to the show, like that's on you, Mobility. Just like hide the comment section and listen to the show. Ignore like I know some of you actually come here just to chill with each other in the comment section, which is cool. If you're here to watch the show, just watch the show, bruv. Like relax.
But equally, if you thought that I was a child and I look it, thank you. Thank you. I will accept that. Thank you.
What was this? Is that to show your new nails off?
Yes.
Let everyone see your nails now. Let everyone see your nails. You want to show them off? Get it done.
Okay, get away.
There we go. Well, you've done it 4 times now. You've done this.
I told you before the show started, if I start acting different, it's because I got my nails.
I know. Absolutely.
I'm different. Yesterday's price is not today's price. What you paying?
Yeah, no, I hear you. Viewers, make sure like buttons are being hit. Make sure you're subscribing. We are talking the big Arsenal conspiracy later on the show, so stay with us. Felix to Arsenal as well. Interesting, before we move on, though, on terms of strikers, this was something I found really interesting today. Yeah. Haaland's missing the Europa League playoff game against Rangers tomorrow night. Do you know he's had 13 injuries in 2 years? 4 of them have been knee problems, and he's missed over 180 days in 2 years. Like, Haaland's low-key got injury problems,
Let's not start that. Yeah, he has been, I won't say injury prone, but he's prone to injuries. Yeah, that's interesting. And then, I mean, whoever gets him this summer, right, they're going to be paying the release clause, I think, so they won't be paying like probably as much as they should. But it's something to look at. Whoever gets him is going to want him to lead the line for them. And so it is something to look at. Why is he getting these injuries? And the injuries that he's getting, could end up being, once your knees are gone, they're gone. Like, you know what I mean?
They're nearly all knee or muscular injuries, and
yeah, that's
worrying.
scary, really.
I do worry a little bit about him in terms of he always returns very quickly from the injuries. He's always like back in the starting lineup very quickly playing. I know
You
he's
don't think
built
he's being managed correctly?
well.
Do you think that's it?
Maybe. I also think it's this because he looks like a man at 21, where some 18 to 21-year-olds, when he's burst onto the scene, look like babies. They look like little boys, like facially, they've got no muscle yet, little skinny things. Like he doesn't. He's built like a man at 18. But maybe that's a hindrance for him because he's being treated like a fully grown man when he's still developing physically as an athlete. And maybe he's being overused. Maybe he's being used a little bit too much. We've seen Cesc Fabregas and Michael Owen and Wayne Rooney, these guys at those ages, because of their abilities, use so much. And look at the age when they all started to dip. All of them, 20, 27, 28, they started to regret. Like, they're all still were very good footballers. But Fabregas in his late 20s wasn't the Fabregas in his early 20s. And you're meant to hit your peak between 27 and 32. But those guys almost seem to get used so much. It's why, by the way, Messi and Ronaldo were just absolute phenoms because they started at the same age and they carried on through till, Ronaldo nearly 20 years later is still playing at a decent level. Well, he's playing at the highest level of the game, but obviously performances have definitely dropped. So I do worry a little bit about Haaland, and I bring him up because obviously Chelsea talking Lukaku, who should we go for? It's just something, when I saw he was out today, I thought, let's go and take a look at his injury record. I was shocked. And I think I was more shocked about his injury record because nobody's talking about it. And, it's definitely something, if I'm a buying club, and it isn't the transfer fee, £62 million is cheap for a player of his finishing ability. But it's the 400, 500,000 pound a week he wants in wages. It's a huge commitment. And if you're losing him for like 2 months a year, it's massive. That is huge. Huge.
Yeah, it is, but I think whoever wants to bring him in will do some sort of, pros and cons, and look at what the benefit of having him here is, and also look at like how he can be managed in order to get the most out of him. Like, some players are just so good that you figure out a way to manage them even though they may have these injury issues early. So I think it's one of those where it's inconclusive whether or not this is something that is going to plague him for the rest of his career. But whoever wants to get Haaland in the summer is going to need to do some sort of, investigative work and see if it's something that can be managed and work through and stuff. Because if he's crocked at 24, 25, you're back in the market looking for another striker.
And it's again, they're going to do their due diligence. It's the scar tissue, especially with knees. It's that if he then gets a bad one, because of rush. If you actually go back and look at Michael Owen's story, his hamstrings were his biggest issue. Hamstrings went all the time, and he had 2 bad hamstring injuries at Liverpool. That I think I read that he said that he never really recovered from. He lost a bit of his blistering pace off the start. He then did the metatarsal after starting really well at Newcastle, but rushed back from the metatarsal injury for England. He didn't have the strength in his legs, which led to his massive cruciate knee ligament injury. And he never got back. And that's the one thing Haaland's got to guard against. He needs his father to be on his side. He needs his agent to protect him. And they need to be forcing the player to not be stupid, because if he ends up getting a severe knee injury on top of all the scar tissue that's already going to be there, at 21, 22, yes, medicine's really good now, but he's built this base at such a young age to go on to be one of the greatest ever goal scorers in Europe. It's almost like take your time now and reap the rewards at the end of it, because it'll be sad to see someone like him pick up 1 or 2 major injuries and then just never fulfill his potential, and be playing for like West Brom in 5 years' time. Do you know what I mean?
Well, one thing that is on his side, it probably doesn't feel like that for him. I know it doesn't, but Norway didn't qualify for the World Cup. They're not going to qualify for the World Cup. So he won't be playing there. So he'll get a break.
I hear you
Yeah.
on that. I hear you on that. In terms of qualification, it's quite a good time to bring this up, really. Man United, Atletico Madrid tonight. One of the weirdest games for me in recent years to kind of watch as a fan, to cover from a content creator point of view. I've read 3 or 4 articles today. Diego Simeone under pressure. They're not defending right. There's problems at the club. You know, he's been there 10 years. Of course, he's won 2 league titles, 2 Europa Leagues, 2 Champions League finals. He's done very well for a club that size, considering the 2 teams domestically he has to compete against. But it feels like they've
Yeah.
got all these major problems. Normally, you know, if Liverpool, City, or Chelsea were going to Madrid tonight to play Atletico, we'd all be going, the Premier League team's going to win. Atletico are in a really poor situation, but Man United themselves are all at sea as well, like not consistent at all. How do you see this game playing out? And although Man United have a terrible record, really and truly, away in Spain, can you see Man United matching what the other Premier League teams have done so far and winning their first leg in the Champions League?
Yeah, I can actually. I think that if you've watched, Atleti this season, especially as of recent, that what we like really liked about Simeone's team a couple of years ago was the solidity and that like dogged effort, like never say die thing that they always do, right? And they've been giving up a lot of goals, like a lot of goals, and they've been able to score goals, but they're giving up a lot of goals.
Yeah.
And they just don't seem to be the same solidified all-together group that they were a couple seasons ago, even though it feels like the talent in the squad has went up a notch, especially up top. It feels like they should have more going for them. And so when I look at this game, I think, let me be fair to Man United. Like, and this is probably like the 1 or 2 times that I'm going to do this, but this is still a Premier League team, a really good Premier League team going up against a European side. And so we saw how Real Madrid kind of just sat back and like couldn't really do anything against PSG. We've seen Lille, somebody like that was a team that people thought were going to make a dent on Chelsea. I don't know who thought that, but they weren't. The speed and the physicality of the Premier League sides is just going to be a little bit too much. And even though Simeone's team seemed to be a little bit more aggressive, they haven't been that this season. That's not who they've been. Do I think Manchester United are just going to walk over them? No. But if Simeone's team doesn't have that defensive solidity, Man United can get at them. You know what I mean? And so I think this is going to be one that United, if they don't do that thing where they get the 1 goal and then say the game is done, we're good to go. If they get 1 or 2 goals, the tie is done, I think. And I think there's a good chance that it could be that. And that's not taking anything away from Atletico Madrid. I understand that they're one of the best teams in La Liga, but it's La Liga. And I have been watching them this season. They are not as strong as they were before. So I think United have a very good chance of getting, a good head start on this tie. Whether or not they see it out, I'm not sure, because we know that we never really know what Manchester United is going to show up. Even against Leeds, was really in control of the game and then let it get out of control for a certain amount of time. You can't do that against Atletico. But if they're sound, I can see Manchester United winning 1-2-0.
Yeah, listen, I hope that's right. I hope you're right, and we can win. I find it I'm never confident going into games at all anymore. If we were playing the way we've been playing in the last 5, 6, 7 games without the collapses we've had, like each game we've collapsed for a moment in the match, where we've lost control for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 15 minutes. And Leeds was weird because for me, really and truly, we lost control for about 5 minutes of the game, but we conceded 2 goals. We even against like Aston Villa, it was only a 10-minute spell we lost control, and then we regained control, but didn't penetrate after that. So if we hadn't have had those moments, I'd feel very confident going up against a team that looks in disarray. What's given me a little bit more confidence has been the way the players have spoke out in the last few days. And I'll be very open about this. I don't believe at all that there was no leaks. I don't believe that no players or their team just spoke to the media. I'm not changing my stance on that. I think what has happened internally, and this is my reading between the lines, I think the players have come together and gone, look, we're being embarrassed here on the pitch and off of it. We all know Gary Neville didn't make up the story that people are phoning journalists and then journalists. He ain't making that story up, in my opinion. He has no mileage in doing that. Like, he hasn't. There is no mileage to it. What's he gain? Like, it ain't like Gary Neville needs views, is it? Like, the guy trends whatever he does. Do you know what I mean? It isn't like he needs the traction. Gary Neville is not clout chasing. He's Gary damn Neville. I believe they've kind of said, look, we've got to come out. We've almost got to galvanize and come together and fight. And otherwise, we're all going to look stupid and we're going to foul on and off the pitch. I think they picked on a few stories that they could kind of talk about and put down and say, no, there's no truth to it. Therefore, United fans will think all the stories are fake. Because we all want to believe they're fake, if that makes sense. We're very easy as fans to like, we're fickle. We're all fickle at all clubs. So I've liked the way we've approached things. I love what Fred said today, where Fred has come out and basically said, like, it's ridiculous we've got an interim manager. Not Ralph. Ralph's great. But we should have a manager in place already. The club needs a long-term plan. Players are saying the right things now. They're calling the right people out. Bruno's been fantastic in the media after the game at the weekend and then in the press conference yesterday. I like listening to a football player that you can tell isn't reading a script or like, this is how you answer a question. The fact that he brought up slapping Maguire on the head saying you scored, it's almost off like he's speaking naturally. Does that make sense? He spoke about the Instagram post he put out where he said the world was saying I was having a dig at Maguire. I wasn't. It was just a picture of me and two players I get on with. And we made a little caption about it. It was like, there was nothing deep into it. So I like all of this stuff. I just hope that we create this mentality where we're all going to work together because we are, as all teams are, it's such a cliche, but they're stronger together than they are fighting individually. And if our players turn up on the night, we can beat them. I think the speed of the Premier League, the power of the Premier League, we saw it in the game last night against Lille. Now, I'm not comparing Lille to Atletico, but if you look at the other games, Liverpool versus Inter, they just couldn't cope with the speed and the fitness. The only thing that will scarper us is if in those moments of ascendancy, which we should have, if we don't take our chances, if Ronaldo misses 2 or 3 sitters, open goals again, if Bruno doesn't have his goal-scoring boots on, now Jadon or Martial or Rashford don't play the right pass or take the shots at the right time, that's when we'll get undone. In the majority of the games that we've dropped points in recently, yes, we've conceded goals that we shouldn't, but it's been not finishing gilt-edged chances. Even you go back to the Leeds game, we conceded those 2 goals, but then we went and scored 2. If we'd have missed those chances, it would have been the same as all the other matches where we still should have won irrespective of conceding. So I've got some hope we can win tonight, but it's really, really hard to back this Manchester United team like unequivocally and feel completely confident in them because they've let us down on so many occasions. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, and you kind of want to go ahead and lay your marker now because I just think if you don't win this tie or this leg of the tie, then I could easily see Simeone shithousing his way into the next round. Just batten down the hatches at Old Trafford and just call it a day and get them going. I know that they have some issues, but sometimes you can galvanize a group by just saying all you have to do is just sit back here and just don't concede. So for me, like, I do think that Atleti have some weapons that can hurt Man United, but ultimately I just think when I look at the strength of both teams, I just can't see beyond Manchester United having more, like Jadon Sancho running at their back line, Bruno Fernandes, doing his thing. Like, I just don't see that same, I don't see that same level of quality at Atletico, even though they're one of the top teams. So I think it'll be close. I can see it being like 1-0, 2-1, something like that. But I think United need to get ahead because Simeone is like, if he gets ahead in this tie, goes to Old Trafford, he's going to sit on that lead. And when they decide they want to sit on it, then it's really difficult from there.
I agree. I see a few people in the comments laughing, saying the Premier League isn't faster than other European leagues. Well, just ask the foreign imports who have played in those leagues, that they're the ones who say it. The irony is when you get players come from Serie A, from the Bundesliga and La Liga that all go, I can't believe the speed of play. And when we say speed, it isn't they run faster in England. No, it's the game is more frenetic. It's non-stop. There are not as many lulls and periods of the game where things are just sort of, just the ball being passed around the back without any press being on. The fitness levels can be higher because of that. It's just the way it is. This isn't something that I'm making up. This is what professionals, ex-pros, and current players are telling us. To ignore that is very, very weird, Ice Freezy. Very weird for you to say that. It's just the facts of the matter, I'm afraid. Tempo of play, as you say, yeah, exactly. The tempo of the play, the speed of the game. Sometimes, yeah, I mean, the phrase is important. It is.
Possession switches over a lot quicker in the Premier League than it does. Like often in other leagues, you'll see that teams have the opportunity to actually build play with nobody even trying to take the ball off of them. Like when I was watching Lille yesterday, I thought they're probably not used to teams flying in at them and not allowing them to just build up play
at certain moments. So what I saw in that game yesterday as a fan, this is fan conversation. I'm not going to try and make this sound, I'm not going to give this a special name so everyone goes, oh my God, it's so techie, man. Chelsea let them play sometimes in their own half and in the middle. As soon as Lille got that ball near Chelsea's final third, it was bang. They got swarmed on like a swarm of bees on the ball, and Lille, their faces were just like, did that ball just get taken off me? It was almost like they didn't even realize it had happened every single time. And it's because it's just different, what they weren't able to do. And Chelsea did this very well. They just sat a little bit deeper. Because again, if you watch Lille play, a lot of their goals, they're able to just, Renato Sanchez gets the ball gets, or one of the midfielders, the ball gets knocked beyond the fullbacks who were pushing up high, and the likes of Jonathan David and I want to say his name, there's a different Jonathan Bamba. They just run onto these balls. It's not basic football. Football is basic. People think football's complex. It really isn't. But it's like that they just sat deep and they weren't able to play their game, and Lille didn't know what to do about it. And obviously, of course, Atletico are a better team than Lille. But you look at what happened with Inter and Liverpool, same difference. Sporting Lisbon, best team in Portugal for the last 2 years, got battered 5-6-0 at home by Man City. Premier League is so much stronger than everywhere else right now. And of course, there are one or two teams in each of these countries who are brilliant, that are great, that have amazing players in it. But the overall depth, it just isn't there. Like if Sporting Lisbon and Lille played in the Premier League, honestly, they're mid-table teams at best. They're absolute best, if that.
So here's just a little bit of it. So I'm trying to think like, okay, how will Atletico set up? Obviously they'll be at home, but they're playing a 4-4-2. So one of the issues that Man United have over the last couple of years is not being able to like break down the lower blocks. You guys tend to like that space in behind to kick it, into your fast players. Do you see that being somewhat of an issue if they sit in and plug all the gaps and you're not like Bruno's not able to kick the ball over the top? I'm not saying it's not like, I'm not saying it to be like rude, but like that's literally the game. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do worry about it from that point of view, because we do struggle to break these teams down. What we're going to need tonight, Paul Pogba is going to be key. Paul Pogba more than Bruno. Bruno's exceedingly good. Bruno's going to be very good if they leave us. Pogba's good if they leave a space as well. Don't get me wrong. Bruno will come alive if there's some space to exploit. What Pogba has in his game, he can pick. Get the ball to land, put the ball through the eye of the needle. He has that extra bit of ability. He is going to be so key from a slightly deeper playmaking position tonight. What also might be key if they do sit back is, we saw this from Lindelof at the weekend, almost a case of our centre-backs are going to have to at times push on and give us an extra person to try and drag somebody out of position. Those things are going to be very, very key. But we have to be clinical tonight. And that's been our biggest issue in the last 5-6 games. People think it's been leaking of the goals. It hasn't been. It's been putting them away. Ronaldo's missed 2 or 3 one-on-one opportunities, stroke open goals, 5 point-blank headers from in and around the 6-yard box, which he'd normally score. The geezer should be sitting there with almost 10 goals in the last 5, 6, 7 games, and not half chances, proper goals. Bruno has missed what I would call 2 open goals, one against Middlesbrough, and then he had the chance against Brighton. The irony is his goal against Brighton in the last minute was brilliant. It's like that was so much harder than the opportunity you had. We need to be clinical tonight. What I would really like is a nice early penalty to Man United and a goal from it. Like that would be lovely to kind of settle the nerves. But look, I'm fearful. I am fearful of Atletico. There is no doubt. I'm not writing them off. I can't. It's ridiculous. I think we've got the hardest draw of all the English teams in this round, without a shadow of a doubt. Even with Ati being who and what they kind of are.
Yeah, we'll see what you guys have, because Chelsea dealt with them quite easily last season. So we'll see where you guys are actually at. I think this is a good indication of where you guys are. Chelsea dealt with them so easily last season in one of these early rounds. If you guys struggle against a worse Atletico, you know where you are.
No, without a doubt, Liverpool beat them twice in the group stages. The reason I'm a little fearful is this: Liverpool are better than Man United, and that's not a weird statement. It's just facts. They are better than Manchester United, and say what you want about it. You go back to their games. The game in Spain was a weird one. Liverpool went 2-0 up. It got back to 2-2. Liverpool make it 3-3, and then Ati should have had a goal for me. That should have been a penalty at the end of the game. They didn't get it. So they are still dangerous. They were able to score 2 goals past, and they hadn't have got the red card. That game was turning in trajectory. Shows how good they can be. And that's the fearful thing for Man United. I've seen Liverpool at home and Chelsea home and away last year be so superior, but you still know they've got something about them. Does that make sense? We just need to be resolute. And there's a lot of players tonight I'm looking for performances from. Players tonight that should be, and I don't want to, they're not listening to me, so I'm not putting pressure on them, but I'm looking at the players like Maguire. Although you've had a bad season so far, you put in a few good performances in important Champions League games. I don't actually care. As a Man United fan, I care about the opinions of rivals to a degree. But Man United fans will start to forgive you if on European nights you put in a masterclass performance and you stop Madrid getting in. If he plays to a very good level, stops Madrid from Atletico Madrid from getting in, and we go on to win tonight 1-0, we get a good 2-0 takeaway, it endears people to you. There is less pressure. So I need the Maguires. I do look at Paul Pogba, because the one thing missing really from Paul Pogba's CV at Man United, and in fairness to him, we haven't had that many seasons in it. He hasn't had very many in knockout games, standout performances in the midfield. Bruno tonight, you've been brilliant in the Prem for us, brilliant in the Europa League for us. You are the most creative player. You've done great in the group stages 2 years running in the Champions League. Individually, it's now time in knockout stages to stand up, step up, and deliver. Those 3 players, Maguire, Pogba, Bruno.
Is Varane not playing, or
Varane may play? I kind of look at Varane. I want Varane.
This is Champions League Varane. Remember,
I leave Varane and Ronaldo out of this in the sense of what I mean about those 3 I'm mentioning is that you need, for your legacy, for your careers, you need Champions League performances. Varane and Ronaldo have done that. Now I want it from them tonight. That doesn't I need them both to be at their best Champions League form. And I actually think that the slower pace of the game. That's why Ronaldo's been brilliant in the Champions League this year. I think the slower pace of those games helps him. That's why I think if he'd have stayed in Italy at another Italian club, we'd all be going, I'd love to have him in my team. He'd be killing it in France. He just would, because the game's slower. But yeah, Varane and Ronaldo, of course, I need them to turn up and have good games. But I'm kind of looking at the careers of Pogba, the careers of Bruno. These are the games away against good Spanish opposition. Go and deliver. That is something that, forget rivals for a minute, as United fans, we will remember forever. And I want Pogba to have that game. I want Bruno to have it. I want people to shut up. I want Maguire to have it just to give him a bit of confidence for the rest of the year, because irrespective of how I feel about how my club's being run, I still want us to qualify for the Champions League next year. I still want the next coach to have everything as perfect as possible to attract the talent and things that he needs, because although I don't trust the club to rebuild, I want it to be a success. You know what I mean? It's like, it's very hard. I don't want the club to fail. I don't want the new rebuild to not be a success. Me not trusting it will happen is very different from not wanting it to. And yeah, look, it's an important night tonight. And I want to be able to go into that second leg, leading, but still feeling like we can go through. What I'd hate tonight is a bad result and you're like, we're out. we're out and we haven't even got back to Old Trafford. That would be the most, when we played Barcelona, that's the last knockout game we played. We were done after the first leg. And it's like, it's so disheartening to go into the second leg already out. So I'm just hoping for a performance tonight, really. Really, really hoping for a good performance from him. Comment here says, when will we have a show on Varane's flop move? From Akash. I suppose we'll do a show on it when people feel like, Man United fans don't feel like he's flopped. So you're not going to get Man United fans talking about him having a flop season when they don't feel like he has. Rivals can try and start the conversation, but as you know as well as I know, Akash, if rivals start to drum up a conversation about a rival club and there isn't support for that conversation within that fan base, it doesn't catch fire. If it wasn't Man United fans calling Pogba names or Rashford names or Sancho names or Bruno names, rivals wouldn't get any traction with it either. So yeah, it's just not going to happen because there isn't enough Man United fans, and I'm one of them. I don't believe it's been a bad move for him. Bit injury prone, but I feel he's done all right when he's played. He's just a few injury issues. There we go. But Man United signings. Ronaldo's a different kettle of fish to his level. It's a bit like with Sancho. He's just started to play well now. Why is that? He's starting to feel settled. The club weren't settled. Let's just wait a little bit and see what happens. But there's a player though in the Atti team tonight who looks like he's going to start. Heavily linked with a move to Arsenal Football Club over the past 24 hours. João Felix to Arsenal. Is a story out there. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, we're still talking the big Arsenal conspiracy later in the show, so stay with us.
Not so big, guys.
It's huge.
Don't let Terry hype you up.
Every single big Arsenal account in the world is talking about it. If every big Arsenal fan account is talking about it, it's huge. We'll get onto that later. But Philip Coutinho to Arsenal.
Philip Coutinho?
Sorry, no. João Felix. I don't know why Philip Coutinho was in my mind. João Felix to Arsenal. Good move, bad move. Do you think it will happen? So good move or bad move first, and then after that, do you think it will happen?
I'm kind of torn on this one a little bit. Obviously, I think João Felix is somebody we should be looking at because, first of all, we know that Simeone and João Felix don't necessarily, we don't know, but it's kind of out there in the ether that wasn't a good move for him. He hasn't really had the kind of explosion that people thought that he would with the big move, 100 and something million to Atletico. And then it just hasn't really worked out for him. So he's kind of had like a stutter, to his career. And so, this is a player that I think we should be looking at for those reasons. And then there's also the aspect of like Atletico will want to recoup as much money as they want to, as much money as they can. And the only teams that are going to be able to do that are Premier League teams. So that's already been reported. That makes a lot of sense to me. So Arsenal should be interested because he's a good young player that is unsettled where he is. And probably the only way that we'd be able to be in the conversation to sign him is because of these circumstances. So taking that all into consideration, we should be looking at him. He can play off the left. He can play center forward. He can kind of play as false nine, all those types of things. Very good young player, fits the project, all of that. But that being said, to spend that amount of money on him, still feeling like we need out and out goal scorer up top, kind of makes me feel like, okay, well, does that make sense? João Felix is a great player, but I can almost see him being like somebody that doesn't score enough goals for us, or we're still trying to figure out where are we going to get those 20 goals from that one player from. So I look at that. If that's coupled with another striker, then that makes sense to me. But the amount of money that we're going to have to pay for João Felix leads me to believe if that's okay, thank you. But that kind of leads me to be like, okay, what are we going to do at center forward if João Felix doesn't bring in 20-something goals? Because that's kind of what we need, right? And he's also not somebody that's going to be a physical presence in the box. I still feel like we don't have that. So yes, I would take João Felix. Yes, he is an excellent player and would fit. But I still think there would be a void there in terms of having a physical presence in the box that can score like 20-something goals. Do I think it will happen? No, like I can't see it right now. Like we need to get into the summer and see who else is interested in him, because Chelsea may be looking for a striker, somebody to replace Timo Werner or Lukaku if they do leave. They're linked with Jonathan David, but who knows what they'll do. If they're looking at Jonathan David, they should be looking at João Felix. Like, you know what I mean? Manchester United obviously looking for a center forward. Manchester City, who knows? They may look for a center forward. You never know. So with other Premier League teams also needing somebody, I think the only way that we'd be able to get João Felix is if everybody else had other options that they liked more. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, it really depends. And then also Champions League football, I think that that's something that we would need to have. Like, I don't feel like he's that big of a flop at Atletico where he needs to like almost go into that realm where it's like, okay, go to he doesn't need to do a Coutinho. You know what I mean? Like he doesn't need to
Yeah.
do that. He can still go to a top team that's playing in Champions League. So I think we need Champions League. I think the other Premier League teams need to be preoccupied with somebody else, you know, another option that they prefer more. And yeah, we have to be willing to spend the money. So there's a lot of different factors there, but I like the link. I think that's who we should be looking at. We should be looking at players of that level. Will we get him? Who knows?
Yeah, look, I know he's playing in a harder league now, but he played 43 first team games for Benfica and scored 20 goals and got 11 assists. And for attackers, outputs matter. In 100 games at Atletico, it's 23 goals and 14 assists. So essentially, he's scored about the same amount, but with double the amount of games. And I think the move came too early in his career. Silly. Too many young kids move too early, and it damages them. Renato Sanchez is a great example. I think when you're moving countries as well, you got to think. If we think back, we're older now. You think back to when you were 17, 18. You think you're an adult. It's not until you are a real adult in your late 20s, early 30s. You like. It's a weird thing to say. I'd change voting laws and drinking laws and driving laws to about 25 if I was in charge. Mainly because of, especially for men, because of how your brain is at that time and stage, to move countries, to move cultures, to move leagues, to move styles, to have the pressure of that all upon you, when actually at 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, generally speaking, you should be thinking about your development, feeling settled. He should have stayed at Benfica for at least another 2 seasons, in my view, and then made his move. I also look at the Arsenal link as you've got Emil Smith-Rowe, who... How much better is João Felix compared to Emil Smith-Rowe? On a real level, how much better is he in anybody's opinion? He's a few years older. I don't think he's that much better than Emil Smith-Rowe. I think Smith-Rowe is exceedingly talented. I think the way he's not even starting very many games at the minute, mainly, and I don't think that's bad for him. Sorry, he's 21 years old. Sorry, he's a year younger or so, maybe the same age group. But he's starting to improve. And it's almost like if João Felix comes in, one of Smith-Rowe or Felix isn't going to get the game time in their best position. So it's almost a case...
Not necessarily if we play him center forward, which is where I think that Arteta would be looking at him to play, João Felix to play through the middle.
And what to play it? So to play as a center forward, and then you're going to have someone behind him.
What do you mean?
So who plays behind João
Odegaard.
Felix? Odegaard. So again, though, so there's still no Smith-Rowe in the team.
Well, Smith-Rowe can play off of the left when Martinelli doesn't play.
Or
he can play as a left 8. See, that's the thing as well. Is like we don't know what Arteta sees. None of us know what Emil Smith-Rowe is. There's a lot of Arsenal fans that feel like he's a 10. Some people feel like he'll eventually become a left-sided 8. Some people feel like he'll always be a forward. Emil Smith-Rowe can probably be whatever he wants to be. But we do have a gap at left wing because they are trying to make Martinelli into a center forward as well.
And that could be it. I see, for me, when I've seen Smith-Rowe play, I love him through the center. I think he's great at that job. I really do think he's great at it. I think he's got everything needed. I think he's being bled in slowly. But he turns 22 in the summer, and he's going to now want and demand, I want to start being a regular. I think Martinelli going central would be a very good thing to do. I still think Smith Rowe going out to the left is going to, I'm not going to say he's not going to do badly. I don't think he's going to be as good as if he plays in that attacking midfield role. And number 10 is a weird phrase now because that kind of David Silva, Juan Mata-esque number 10 Ozil role, it doesn't really seem to be used as much in football anymore.
The thing that people, I think, let's say if you haven't been watching Arsenal recently, and you're not an Arsenal fan, you probably wouldn't have picked up on this, but we have moved from a 4-2-3-1 to a 4-3-3. That's what we're doing now. So one CDM and 2 8s or 2 10s or whatever. And I could easily see, Emile Smith Rowe playing as the left 8 and Odegaard playing on the right. Because the thing about Emile Smith Rowe is he's not displacing Odegaard. He's not. Like he's not. If there's one spot, he's not going to do it. But the two of them can do it. But also we're also anticipating playing in Europe. So we're going to need more players. Somebody's going to have to replace Pepe. Exactly. Because I don't think Pepe will stay. So we need options. But I also feel like I know Emile Smith Rowe is a great player and he's going to be a good player, but we can't be afraid to bring in other talented players because he's there. You know what I mean? Like there has to be other, we have to keep progressing,
And I understand that. And I think that I think people in football get bogged down with the starting position on the graphic that the television company puts up. And I think what's really, really key for me is, where does somebody where do they drift to? So you can start in a midfield 3 as the left-sided 8, but where do you do, the majority of your work? And Smith Rowe definitely gravitates out to that left-hand side. I don't see him being when people say Martinelli, I don't see him replacing Martinelli and being as impactful as a left-sided inside forward. I think playing the left side of a 3 in midfield works because he gets to drift out to the left, but I think he's also very damaging when he comes into the middle. I like him starting centrally, but again, it's that drift. And this is what's really key. Bruno Fernandes starts centrally, but he spends the majority of his time on the right-hand side of the field. That's where he does the majority of his work from. So this is what I mean with people. They'll say, he scores a lot of his goals from the left. Don't worry about the starting graphic on the field of play. Bruno starts centrally, but spends 80% of his game on the right-hand side. And that's because of the fluidity of a team or what you're trying to create. People, inside forwards, they're designed now not to hug touchlines. They cut inside. If inside forwards are cutting inside, you can't have your 2 8s as they were also staying central because then everybody's central and there's no width and you can't stretch teams apart. So there's a real interesting take here on what positions people take up. And the point is, for me, with João Felix, I don't see him as a number 9 striker unless you're going to play like a false 9, which I think he could do. And then you just need Saka and Martinelli or someone else who comes in as well to become more prolific in front of goal because you need goals to come from somewhere. And I think that Smith Rowe will also get you goals from deep. I think what he'll do when Martinelli cuts in, if you use his false 9, is he will take up unoccupied areas from a creative point of view on the left. But of course, when he scores his goals, he's coming in from the left into a more central area. If you look where you are and where he stands when you're out of possession, he'll be more central. So it's really key for me. I still prefer him. I like watching him when I've seen him central, and I'm talking about overall play. But of course, it's about where you find yourself during those moments, what your other opponents are doing. And I'm really impressed with Smith Rowe. And that's the only thing I would have a concern with when it comes to João Felix is what you've said. Who and what and where does Arteta see him? If he sees him as the number 9, but more of a false 9 position, then it's never going to damage him because that isn't where Smith Rowe for me is ever going to play. If he sees him as the guy behind the striker, so he also wants to sign, I'm just going to make a name up here, Dominic Calvert-Lewin as well. It won't be him. If he wants to play him there, that means you're playing a 10, which means you're not playing the 3 in midfield. Then where does Smith Rowe go? Because
I think
that's what I'm intrigued about.
Yeah, and just to reiterate this point, if you bring in João Felix and you want him to play the center forward as a false 9, you still need to back him up with a traditional 9. We don't have one in the team, and so there will be a day where your false 9 doesn't work, and you have to have somebody that can come on and just be a physical presence in the box. Yeah. I don't know how you get it done, but you need to, because you can't just have João Felix as your only option. We're losing Lacazette and Nketiah will be gone. There's no other option. So that would be my only apprehension to spending big money on João Felix and then not being able to get the 9 in there as well. Somebody that can back him up just in case we need something different. Because I don't even think Martinelli will be ready to do it. So those are my things. Would take him. Do I think it's going to happen? Not sure. Great player. We'll be watching him today as if he's coming to Arsenal.
Yeah, no, I hear you completely. I hear you completely. It's an interesting one, as you say, like looking at where and what people do and how it's all gonna play out. Like everyone's got a different kind of view and an opinion on him. And I just see Smith Rowe is so talented. Martinelli's so talented. It's about getting that balance right. I think what's also key for Arsenal is also experience, because I think he's very talented, João Felix. But what you're missing at the moment is elder statesmen in your team as well. People that have been there, done it a bit more. I think you need to sign a few players that are just a few years older and can help lead some of these youngsters. But yeah, it's going to be intriguing to see how it works. I mean, we're saying what we're saying now. He'll probably start in the false 9 position against Man United tonight and score a fucking hat-trick, and it'll be like, yeah, there we go. That's how good he is. And then Arsenal fans will be seriously gassed with these links. They will. But yeah, it's going to be intriguing to see indeed. Viewers, make sure you're hitting like and share buttons on the show right now. Comment here say we're gonna go to this comment here. It's about Lukaku, actually. It says Lukaku played his best position last night, bench. What a man of the match performance. 10 out of 10 is what Red Wolf says. The comment here for yourself, Jess, it says, can you ask Jess who is better, Saka or Felix? Who is better, Saka or Foden? So she wants Tim wants an answer on both of those.
You guys know I can't just do like just straight up answers. So at the moment, Saka is better than João Felix. And the reason why I say that is because I just think he has more impact and he's in the right place and he's working really hard. João Felix might be somebody that has more talent, innate talent, but it's not coming out. So I can't say that he's better than Saka right now when I watch Saka day in and day out and that guy is performing and he's probably one of our best, he's probably our best player. So at the moment, I would say Saka. Who's better, Saka or Foden? It's Foden. I think Foden is at least a year ahead of Saka in his progression. And Foden is going to be one of the best. If he's not he's one of the best young players. But once he ages out of that, I think he'll be one of the best players in the world. I think that guy is insanely good. But Felix has a lot of talent. But if it's not coming out, I can't necessarily put him in front of Saka just because the compilations say that has more tech. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's look, I Saka and the likes of Smith Rowe are as talented as João Felix. There's just not been as much. It's always easier for a João Felix to get hyped because when that young talent is breaking through and football's excited, no one in the Prem has a dog in the fight. So everybody goes, oh, he's so good. As soon as a player is hyped who is at a rival club, there is a natural propensity to play it down. Everybody. I hadn't met a single person who didn't think Jadon Sancho was top class until he was almost a Man United player. Then suddenly, these flaws, these holes. Yeah, and you'll see it again. Like you got with João Felix. I've seen pretty much universal support for João Felix for the last 3-4 years. If he's about to sign for Arsenal, watch all the, but this is weak and that is bad and this isn't good. It just happens all the time. So I think Saka is absolutely astounding. I think what hindered Saka is being so versatile in the first couple of years, like left back, left midfield. Now he's on the right-hand side. What he kind of maybe needs, that's been good for his experience, is that prolonged period now, 2 years, one position to nail it down, to become proficient and specialist in that area. Especially as football's becoming less freestyle and more prescribed. Every system has a moving part and you've got to be able to work in it. If you're someone that's won 10 games, you're playing left back, and then you're playing 3 games at right midfield, right, like the right side of the 8, and then you're going into the inside forward role, and then you're playing right back, and then you're back to left back, you're never going to become a specialist, especially when systems are so prescribed now. So I think Saka's class to answer that question. I do. And I'm praising Arsenal a lot today. What's really intriguing, I was looking at Wirescout and looking at Emil Smith Rowe. Interestingly, the heat maps aren't as dark for Smith Rowe as they are for Bruno. I think because they kind of add up all the games anybody's ever played, but they have them both down as playing almost the same position. They have them both in as like attacking midfielders with 8% on the left-hand side for Smith Rowe and 11% for Bruno, and it's because what this app does, it looks at starting positions, but then it also looks at where you drift to. And Bruno is actually mad. Bruno, like, his big heat maps are either left and right of the center, and then he has a lot of touch in the middle. That geezer don't stop moving around. Maybe he should just stand still a bit more. Might help us. I don't know. Maybe he's a little bit too all over the place. Even though it's balanced, it's interesting. But yeah, very similar. So why Scout's been a really interesting tool for my football development is because I used to be so obsessed on, but you're right. Like, I look at someone like Jadon Sancho, but he starts right midfield. But you actually look at him at Dortmund, he spent a lot of his time when he started on the right central. When he started on the left, he would stay left because their system dictated it. Why? Maybe because he had Hakimi down the right-hand side and wasn't needed to be out wide. On the left, it was Guerrero. Yeah, that guy. He used to cut inside a lot. You have to watch it. He used to go central quite a bit. It's just systems, you know what I mean? So I always say to people, like, look at the system and look at the pattern of play. And Y-Scout's very good at doing that because it kind of explains it to you like you're 5 years old. But speaking about Arsenal, I need to ask you this question. And I'm asking it. There's no salt here. This is a subject. I spoke with Lee about it yesterday, and I wanted to get your take on it today because I got a lot of crap for it last night. And I'm like, I'm going to speak to Jess because people just thought I brought it up to make Lee Gunner rant, and that isn't really what happens. If you know, it is what it is. But there's a lot of people across social that are talking about there being, you retweeted this yesterday, you know, there's just seen that Martin Atkinson will officiate Arsenal versus Wolves on Thursday. I think there's still enough time to print Scott McTominay's face mask, right? Obviously, that was my response. You probably didn't see my response to this, but it said you're a conspiracy theorist there. But I've seen a lot of this. You know, we've seen some of the big names on AFTV say that referees are against us. I've seen threads, I've seen videos, I've seen articles, I've seen all sorts. Arsenal fans saying we are the favourites, but the referees will stop us from getting top four. There is an actual agenda from the referees to stop us getting top four. What's your take on Arsenal fans saying the referees are against us and are helping our rivals on purpose?
I don't know if it's that deep where they have a vested interest in who finishes top four and they're, making calls based on that. In the against Arsenal thing, I do think that, like, we rarely get the rub of the green, or like most 50-50s don't really go in our favor. Like, we had at least 4 like 50-50, and I'm being conservative saying 50-50 penalty shouts against Brentford and got 0 at home. Like, I've never seen that before. And it just feels that way. I do think we have our own part to play when it comes to the red cards and stuff like that. Some of that is just us being stupid. Pepe putting his hand around somebody's neck, that's stupid. Xhaka putting his hand around somebody's neck, that's stupid. But I think some of the 50-50 things that could potentially go our way tend not to. But I understand also that other fans feel that same way about their own team. You know what I mean? But when it comes to, like, we're favorites for top 4, totally okay with people feeling that way, saying that, whatever, cool. Like, if you feel like we're favorites, we're favorites. But it'll be the refs that take it away from us. We didn't get any of the calls that we should have against Brentford, but we still won. And I think if we're good enough, we'll get top 4 regardless of what the referees do. I don't think it's that where, like, even in the midst of games where, like, we felt like calls went against us, ultimately I felt like there were bigger things that we did, either good or bad, that had a bigger impact on the result of the match.
Yeah.
So I get it. Like, I understand where people are coming from, and, seeing all the threads and all of that, that kind of show all the instances where we may have feel like it was unjust or whatever. But, like, nobody can stop us from getting top 4 but us. You know what I mean? Like, if we're good enough, it won't matter. And sometimes I feel like because the margins are so fine, because maybe we're not as good as we should be, like, then the calls seem more heavy than they should. I need to see a game where we are winning the game and a call goes against us and it's a penalty. I need to see something like that, and it just turns the game on its head. Again, against City, that wasn't the referees being against us. We made that happen. Granit Xhaka fouled, Bernardo Silva in the box. Like, so we have to take into account our culpability in all of these instances. Some things feel like they're going against us. Some things are our own faults, but nobody can stop us from getting top four but us. If we're good enough, we'll get it regardless of what's going on. And so I hear what Arsenal fans are saying, but we have to keep it 100. If you want to be favorites, just say your favorites. Like, it's cool. And with the whole like McTominay thing, I do think that, and like Phil Neville said it, I mean, he said it out of his own mouth, that like the referees back then would favor United, but United also knew how to play the refs. And so McTominay, I don't know if he's getting away with it or he's smart, but like, he could be so aggressive in the way that he plays, where when I said, like, if an Arsenal player played like that, there's no way he doesn't get sent off in that match against Leeds. Like, and that's why that was funny to me. Like, it was just funny. But I don't take it. I rarely focus on referee decisions. That's not me. Like, that's not, I mostly focus on what we're doing. You know what I mean? Because they've always, I've always felt like we can't rely upon good results from the referees. Like, that's not in our hands.
And you never can. And listen, I think a few things to unpack there. Firstly, Phil Neville's thing. Like, yeah, I think that when you're the team in the Man City get accused of a lot of this now. That Man City seem to get away with more professional fouls than I see anybody else get away with. The team that are top of the tree, there always seems to be or feel like there's like they get away with things more than anybody else. But I think what Phil Neville is alluding to is learning how to play the referees, how to do it in the right way. It's a technique, it's a skill. And John Fashanu told this story once where what he used to do in the build-up to games, he'd find out who's refereeing. Sometimes he knew all this because he'd done the research before, but it could be someone he didn't know. It could be Martin Atkinson whoever the Martin Atkinson back in his day was. And he'd get someone at the club he was at. I think it was Villa at the time he was talking about. So who's he married to? What's her name? What are his children's names? What are they doing? So he'd be up to the referee in the warm-up going, "Oh, hello, Martin. How's Patricia? She still doing? Oh, she good. I know that she was unwell. Is she better now? Oh, good." Later on in the day, "Oh, how's little Martin and Jessica doing? I heard that Jessica's off to senior school soon. What school? Is she doing well? I'm really glad to hear that." He would be lovely to him. He said because he knew doing that meant that his first bad tackle that should have been a yellow card, the referee always went, "Come here." They said, "Fashanu, cut it out." He made a friend with him. Now, that isn't a conspiracy. That's John Fashanu being smart. And I don't know what Scott McTominay does before, during, and after games. I don't know what he says to referees. I think a lot of the time with referees, it's how you're spoken to. Bruno doesn't get away with what Scott McTominay does because Bruno is horrible to the referees. You can see it on his face. They don't like the way he talks to them. Where McTominay, I just think it's more, I think he befriends them. I think it's about how smart you can be in terms of that. And of course, you'll see things go for you. You'll see things go against you. As a Man United fan, I kind of sit there sometimes and I sort of laugh at these things because I kind of sit there and I'm like, I understand it. A gal I've been told, I haven't seen it, has like a chart. It has like a literal chart of all the things that have gone against Arsenal. And I said it on yesterday's show. I'm like, but that chart only works. You know, when we had that conversation about, I don't know where this came from, but Arsenal, when they had their last season, when they had their fully fit squad, they had their fully fit team for like 15, 16 games. And in those 15, 16 games, the data points indicated that they had more points than anybody else in those games. And I'm like, but that's a flawed data because you haven't done that same level of research on the 19 other teams. What weaknesses do those other 19 teams have when your team was at full strength? The same thing happens here with referee decisions. You have to do that full body of work on your club. And then you have to sit down and do it on all other 19 teams. Then you can work out whether or not you're getting more 50-50 decisions go against you than not. And you can't do the research by yourself because subjectivity is going to come into play. And you're going to see a 50-50 that Man United didn't get and go, yeah, but I don't think that was a penalty. You need to sit there with a United fan and a Liverpool fan and a City fan, agree it. And what I'm saying to this is there are some serious accounts here putting out this notion. And I just think all they're trying to do, And I know that you don't do this, Jesh, but I think what some Arsenal fans are trying to do is they're putting an excuse in place for if you don't make it, we can't blame certain players, and we definitely can't blame the manager. And to bring it to life in terms of things for Man United, this isn't just this season. I took 5 minutes while you were talking to find this. Okay, sorry, I put this up earlier. Sorry. There's a penalty that most United fans thought we should have got against West Ham. And remember, a few minutes later, we conceded the penalty, which they missed. There was a handball last year. Callum Hudson-Odoi as an example. Last season, our goalkeeper getting absolutely smashed in the air wasn't given as a foul. Same thing happened to us down the other end. The goal was given. Just the other day, a proper handball control leading up to a goal not given. The point I would say about the conspiracy theory is this. If the conspiracy theory exists to make Man United perform better and do better than Arsenal, decisions like you've just seen on the screen wouldn't happen. That's where I would say there's a conspiracy where obvious things are not going your way. I just think Arsenal fans, as you've said it, and you said it right, Jess, if you think you're favourites, own that you're favourites. If you own that you're favourites and it doesn't come off, you can only look at this is the league campaign, 38 games. I can understand if you're the better team in the FA Cup semi-final, which you're not in, but like FA Cup semi-final, and you should have had 3 or 4 penalties and you didn't get them. The opponent should have had a man sent off and it didn't happen. And then you lose narrowly 1-0. I get on that occasion, you might go, referee cost us today. But over 38 games, it's on you. It's completely on you. And every day I see this conspiracy thing go further. And what I don't like about it is almost like when we win, we can celebrate and say it's because we deserved it and we're the best. But if we lose, we're just going to blame everybody else. And I feel like it's weak in the sense of you're removing the jeopardy part of football. It's almost like Arsenal are just perfect, and anything that goes wrong now is referees or opponents. And I don't know. I find that just a bit weak and a bit namby-pamby from a fan base and a club that I've always looked at as being so strong and resolute. It's a bit of a shame, really, to see so many people just pushing this nonsense, really.
Yeah, I don't have much more to add to that, to be honest. Because they feel the way that they feel, and so they feel like they have a point to prove, and it is what it is. But there's still large parts of the fan base that don't feel this way. They get the most attention because people latch on to Arsenal, accounts that are bigger and all that kind of stuff. But I don't think that's, I don't know. Again, I don't really understand it. Everybody feels that way. I do have to say that I do think that some of the 50-50s don't always go our way, but that's life. And if we don't make the top 4, then it's probably because we just weren't good enough,
Yeah, I mean, it's an Arsenal fan. I know it's an Arsenal fan. Just tweet me. Why did you tweet pictures of these of those decisions? Because we all get bad decisions that go away. David Berry or David Beza, as you're calling yourself. Like, I hear you, and we all feel that about the 50-50s. Do you know the irony in all of it is? I was saying to Lee Gunner yesterday. Smaller clubs outside the top 6 think all teams in the top 6 get given the rub of the green. That's the irony in a lot of that, is that they all think that we're given more decisions than they will ever get. And you always hear their managers talking about it, don't you? Especially before VAR, came in. Akash here says only Arsenal fan base can get away with such delusional conspiracy theories. Imagine the backlash on this channel if any Liverpool channels do this stupidity. I mean, look, we talk about all clubs here, bruv. We don't go for Arsenal more than anybody else, or Liverpool more than Arsenal fans. Actually, outside of the terrace sphere, think we go for Arsenal more than anybody else. But that's the irony in it. Liverpool fans don't like the terrace, some of them, because they think we're too harsh on Liverpool. City fans think we're too harsh on them. It's kind of weird. It's maybe that's the whole point. Maybe you're all just getting treated the same, but you just want to be treated better. No conspiracy against us. It's just everyone wishes their team was Arsenal, is what Machine has got to say. We've already had that question. There's no conspiracy against Arsenal. Fans who think they are hard done by are get the violins out, make me fall asleep when there's...
But then at the same point, the funny thing is that, and I will pull them up, I know that Arsenal are probably doing it the most. We're also the biggest fan base, online. So anything that we do seems to trend. Mikel Arteta trends when we're not even playing. That's how big our online fan base is. you guys do it too. It's not just us. Like, everybody complains, and you complain less when you're better. But I will find it. Liverpool fans complain about things not going their way. You guys cried about Harry Kane not getting sent off in that game that you guys drew against Spurs. So don't sit here and act like you guys never cry about fouls not going your way and not getting calls and all that kind of stuff. Everybody does it. We're just our fan base just tends to, we have like the most podcasts, the most big accounts. So we tend to trend more. We are doing a little bit too much, but like, don't sit here and act like you guys don't cry about calls too, because you do. You do.
That's not aimed at me.
No, I mean, but Manchester United fans cry about stuff too.
Of course they do, and you've been on enough of my shows to say one thing I always talk about. I never blame referees for anything, even when everyone's like, "Oh, you're not blaming the ref today, Terry." I'm like, well, because yes, Middlesbrough shouldn't have scored their goal, but Man United shouldn't be getting beat by Middlesbrough at home. Look at yourselves, I understand blaming the ref if you're the weaker team. So if you're playing Man City at the Etihad and you get a terrible penalty conceded and they beat you 1-0, that kind of makes sense. But when you're at home to Burnley and you get beat 1-0, don't care what the ref does. That's on you. Like, you're playing Burnley, you're at Arsenal, you're at home. There is no excuse. I think it's always contextual in that way. I love the show, bro. United will win 3-1 tonight. I hope so, Alpha Dave TV. I hope so. Red Wolf said there's no agenda. Anyone who thinks there is has become deluded. If they don't get top 4, no one to blame but themselves. Poor discipline, red card FC. How would you run a dressing room, through fear or love? Oh, I think there has to be an element of both, and maybe those words are very polarizing. Fear and love. I think there needs to be respect. I think respect is the most important thing. Love's a weird one because love can turn to hate very quickly in working environments. There needs to be a level of respect, and generally that's how people are treated. Coupled with it's a natural thing. Some people just got more respect than others, but it's a really good question, Matt. Joshua here says, it's the game within the game with Scott was first, but put red on the white shirt, but also do enough not to get sent off. Look, I'll be honest with you. I think Scott McTominay, the head clash thing was a head clash. Head clashes very rarely I've never understood it, to be fair. I remember tweeting about it when when Jimenez happened, because it was a game I was watching live, and I didn't ask for David Luiz to be sent off. It was just why don't if you go out for a header and you get there late and you clash the guy, you headbutt the guy essentially and break his skull. I've always wondered why that's never a foul. Like, a goalie can jump up with his knees out, break someone's ribs or fracture their skull, which has happened, and it isn't a foul. I always find it where if I went for a normal tackle in the middle of the park and won the ball, but then broke the guy's legs, I'm getting sent off. I've always been confused by it. So that one was what it was. I think Scott McTominay gets sent off if the weather conditions weren't how they were. And the reason I say that is because throughout the whole game, if you go back and just listen to the commentators, listen to what the likes of Beckford were saying at halftime, they were all celebrating it, going, the ref's letting so many things go in this game. It's like an old school match. So that contextually annoyed me that then everyone's like, well, why didn't McTominay get sent off? I'm like, but for the whole game, Twitter, everywhere was going, this is a throwback. Look at the tackles. I'm glad the ref's letting things flow. And then McTominay doesn't get sent off. And it's like, well, why didn't he send him off like any other normal game? You can't celebrate the game being abnormal and then moan that normal things didn't happen. It's crazy to me. That's just my take anyway. And I know you weren't happy with McTominay. I saw some of your tweets. You were basically like calling for him to be arrested for GBH, basically, weren't you? So,
I mean, he's just could be so aggressive, and he doesn't get any calls, but he's Scotty, so it's fine.
What does that mean? What does that mean?
He just doesn't. Like, I watch him play and I just think he just can do pretty much anything he wants, and it's fine because the narrative around him is that he's just good old Scotty playing hard and he's also trying to be hard as well doing this stuff. Like, it's fine. Like, it's not that big of a deal. Like, it's funny, but it feels like if you say it, people get upset, and it is what it is. Like, he can be overly aggressive, and he's doing it because he wants to be hard,
I
and
think
he's Scotty, so it's fine. Like,
when you're saying he's Scotty, I'm sensing an undertone that people get annoyed, not because of what you're saying, but it's like you're not saying everything you actually mean here. You're holding back. It's almost like you want to say something else.
No, he's good old Scotty, good
What does that
boy. He's nice, he works hard. He's united. It's fine. Like, that's what it feels like.
mean?
What am I trying to say that I'm not
I don't know.
saying?
It feels. I don't know what you're trying to say. I'm not going to imply anything. I'm just saying. I think people are like, what are you actually saying?
I'm saying that he can be aggressive. He had like 6 fouls in that first half, and nothing happened to him. And I get, conditions, but it's like it's not the first time that I've seen Scott McTominay do things that I'm like, oh, okay, like, okay, that's cool. Like, all right. And I think his intention is to make up for maybe something that he lacks and be hard. That's all. Like,
I don't think he's trying to be hard. I think he is a tough player. I don't think he's trying to be hard. I think that's the only thing I disagree with. I think he is tough in that regard. Jonas here says, can you explain why Arsenal have the second lowest fouls in the Premier League, yet the most red cards? Saka against Palace, big standout, kicked from behind out of the Emirates. I think you've got to look at it from the point of view of what have the red cards been for? Were they in themselves? Have you had any red cards this season that you don't think were justifiable?
I think that some of the red cards that we've gotten, like, so Xhaka's against Liverpool, I think makes sense. Last man was out of control. Yeah. I think when you look at like Thomas Partey's, like, he had like 2 fouls and a red. Like, it's like, how do you, okay, like for some of the red cards that we've gotten, I feel like the referee had to want to do those things, make those calls, but he didn't have to. Within the rules, there's always options within the rules. So it depends on how the referee wants to referee the game. I think, even with Martinelli's, there was another option there. He didn't have to send off Martinelli there, did he? So I do think it's justifiable within the rules, but a referee has to want to send the player off. And I think Martinelli's and even Gabriel's to a certain extent against Man City. I just think he had one foul and a red. It was, I get why, but like you have to kind of want to do it. So justifiable within the rules. So you can't really, but when you watch other games and you see that referees take other options within the rules, that referees have to want to do certain things. I
kind of get you on that. I think it comes down to personalities. I think one thing that would really help us, been asking for it for years, mic up the refs, turn the mics up when it happens, warn the players. If you're swearing when the mics are on, you get an instant red card. It will stop the swearing and all the bad things that come out of it. I think that would be an eye-opener. What's being said to the refs, how people react, what the language is like. Like, one thing I never understand with referees is why they put up with when people are walking away, get like swearing. And I mean, I would stop. I would never have a player swear at me after the first weekend I refereed. I'd send 6 of the pricks off. You swear at me, you get sent off. You're not a bad man. Straight up. I'd be like, I don't care if you think I'm making myself the star of the show. Be like, you swear at me, you get a red card. It was like that. The school I played in, my PE teacher, Mr. Hagger, legend, I swore on a football pitch, not in aggression, in celebratory terms. He was refereeing the match and he was our PE teacher. Man sent me off. Do you know, I never swore on a pitch again. Even as an adult, I was like, do you know what? I'm not doing that. And it was like, that's what we've got to teach some of these players. That's what I want to see. I want to hear them mic'd up. Equally, what we don't get still from refs is a justification as to why. And I sometimes feel like that would help us in that regard. I think what sometimes referees do in games as well, one thing I've always thought was wrong, and it's happened to Arsenal in your match against whoever you were playing. You had a player taken down very cynically on a halfway line on a breakaway, but it was 5 minutes in, no yellow card given. One of your players committed that foul 20 minutes later, and a yellow card was given.
That was against Wolves.
Wolves, in it. I don't like this rules within a rules situation. It's either you manage the game every game by the letter of the law or you don't. The problem is when you ask for referees to make subjective decisions within subjective decisions, you're always going to get inconsistency because
Well, I never understood because like then you get, okay, well, what was his intention? Like you don't know what their intention is, so why are we talking about it? Oh, well, it was early in the game. Why does it matter? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
I agree with you, but at the same time, this is why there's fans help create the inconsistency because we know this because the evidence is there. Beginning of the season, handballs galore were being given for players with their hands by their sides, balls being crossed into the box and hitting their hands. Luke Shaw was a case in point. It's really slowed down now. They're very hard to get. City got one the other day, but the man's like literally Romero had his arms in the air like this. Now, if the arms are by the side or they're tucked in a little bit, you're not getting them. So clearly, the feedback from the clubs and fans moaning about it has led to a change in how they interpret the rules. Equally, so if we can make referees and the associations change how they manage a subjective decision, when we're 1 minute saying you can't send Jens Lehmann off, I'm using famous examples here, 5 minutes, 10 minutes into a final because it ruins the game, we can't then moan when one of our rivals gets away with something because the referee's like, well, I didn't want to ruin the game. Do you want us to ruin games or not? Do you want it to be the letter of the law or not? I think with fans, if we're being really honest, this is why I kind of dropped my referee agenda 4 or 5 years ago, is we will pick and choose how we want them to referee based on who's playing in the game. If it's Man United versus whoever this weekend and Arsenal want us to lose, you want United to be refereed within the letters of the law 110%. If it's you guys versus Wolves tomorrow night, you want the referee to... don't want him to referee the occasion. You want him to referee the occasion. It's a big, important game, top 4 race. I'll allow that one to go in the opening 10. It is very wet and slippery tonight. Let it go. And we're all the same. I'm the same. And I think that's the problem here. Referees are pulled from pillar to post by the clubs, by fans, by the media, every single which way. That isn't a get out of jail free for them for the decisions they make. But when you add subjectivity to a subjective decision, how do anybody want consistency? And that's why the offside rule was mad for me, that people started getting angry over it being very specific down to minute measurements. Because I'm thinking, it's an objective decision. It's brilliant that we actually get a yes on or off, categoric. I wish we could get to that point with every single decision. Goal line technology is amazing now because it's either on, it's either over, or it isn't. There's no debate. And I absolutely love decisions being like that. But when you add subjectivity on top of subjectivity, surrounded by emotion of fans, we're always going to think people are against us. I think.
Yeah, I guess I would prefer and this is my personal preference. Some people prefer for the rules to just be, I kind of would like the referees to obviously referee within the laws, but try their hardest to keep the product what it should be, which is 11v11. I personally think it's too easy to get penalties. It's too easy to get red cards. And that's just not for Arsenal. That's kind of for everybody. And it skews the way the game is. 10v11, the game is just, it's just done. And so I forget who refereed Liverpool versus Chelsea. I think it was the same weekend that we played against City. It was Liverpool and Chelsea. That was refereed perfectly, in my opinion. There were opportunities for the referee to make decisions that would have changed the way that the game went. But nobody's talking about Mane's, elbow to the face or anything like that because it was a really good game. You know what I mean? So that's my personal preference, is try to keep 11 men on the pitch, use common sense, and
so you're actually happy with how the referee managed Scott McTominay then? What he did with Scott McTominay in your eyes was perfect?
No, I mean, I said within the rules, but within the rules, but I looked at it and I thought, no, but hold on. I looked at it when I said Scott, I never said Scott McTominay should have been sent off, and I didn't rage on it. It is what it is. He got away with things that I personally thought other people wouldn't have gotten away with. I'm not but calling for Scott McTominay's head to be off. You know what I mean?
And I get that. But equally with Mane, if Mane's elbow to the head would have been 40 minutes into the game, he probably would have been sent off. But your preference is 11v11. So the fact that the referee kept Scotty on the pitch, you're happy with that because that's how you want to see the game.
I mean, I prefer that,
Okay.
Again, because I don't take so much stock in refereeing decisions,
Mm.
me laughing about Scott McTominay and being able, maybe you think it's more serious than it is because all like more Arsenal fans are upset. You know, I personally don't want the game to be about refereeing decisions. I
I
don't,
agree. I agree.
so, but I do laugh at that was a funny tweet. It just was. Let's just laugh.
No,
Relax. Like
I hear you on that. And I think for me, a tweet like that is funny.
it
But
was.
we're seeing far more than that tweet. We're seeing like legitimate claims of conspiracy and
But you
problems.
didn't hear it from me,
No,
and that's why when
I
I
didn't,
was explaining what I would
I didn't accuse,
prefer.
I didn't accuse you of that.
No, but that's because you were like, well, so you prefer da 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 da, like as if you caught me out. You didn't
No,
because you didn't
I'm not
because
looking to catch you out. I'm looking to. We're obviously having a conversation, and I'm just listening to what you've said about Scott. And yeah, you didn't make any massive claims that he should have been sent off, but I'm taking your example about the Chelsea Liverpool game and applying it to Man United Leeds and saying, well, and I like that, and I like that you've said that because I'm very much the same. I don't like in any circumstance players. I'm the opposite to you, but we're the opposite ends of the same spectrum. If a bad two-footed tackle happens 30 seconds into the game, it should be a red card.
of course.
I'm a letter of the law person in the sense of I don't think it being the opening 5 minutes of a cup final should change because it means, well, the reason I don't like it is this, and let's take it away from a red card tackle. If 5 minutes into a cup final, Rashford's about to break away but gets dragged to the floor and the referee doesn't book the fullback because it's 5 minutes in, that allows the fullback to complete one more cynical foul in that game without being sent off, which could, if you're up against a very good team, damage your team. So I'm a little bit the same. I don't care about the occasion. I don't care about keeping it 11v11. I care about the rules being applied to almost the nth degree. However, there are always grey areas. So I understand if you're playing
Manage the gray areas better. There's some
yeah,
instances where it's black and white. Whether the like so yeah, like if there's a leg breaker challenge, straight up first play of the game, yeah, it's got to be a red card, whatever. But managing the gray area, I think, is where the referees kind of get it wrong, and this is where it gets into they're refereeing things differently. Personally, I would like the gray areas to be managed a little bit more leniently, like in terms of how hard you can tackle, whatever, but because I see some referees be super like in the first 10 minutes, 20 minutes of a match, they've already given out 3 yellow cards. It's like,
yeah, I agree.
and the
I
temperature of the
agree.
game makes a difference as well, because when Chelsea and Liverpool were playing against each other, the temperature of that game was very high. So
Yeah,
you saw it from minute 1. You have to manage the gray areas better. And I thought that game was
yeah.
refereed perfectly. But I think there's other games that you can look at where you're like, you probably could have managed the gray areas a little
What
bit
always
better.
happens as well in those games where let's just say Arsenal are playing Wolves tomorrow night, but you use your game. Wolves commit a cynical foul after 2 minutes and they don't get a yellow card. Another, they've got, I don't know, Neves commits 3 fouls in only 10 minutes, doesn't get a yellow card. What tends to then happen is Xhaka makes his first tackle of the game and he's late, gets a booking, and it rattles everyone because they're like, hang on, they got away with 4 fouls that could have been yellows, and our first one's done it. That's when, for me, referees lose control of the game. That's why if you book for bookable offenses straight away, no one can ever argue. And again, you're right. The grey areas massively need to be managed better. And I think the occasion is not the occasion as in the final shouldn't matter. Things like weather play a part. If it's icy and cold, like when someone gets tackled and they hit the ground, as a ref, you're going to hear a bigger thud. It's going to be more painful for that player. It doesn't make the foul worse. Because it's raining, people are going to slide. I remember Ander Herrera being sent off once because he ran towards a player. He stopped, but it was very wet and he slipped and he went through the player. And it's like he tried to stop. It's not even a foul. It was an accident, but yet he booked him and there was no common sense. So we've all seen those decisions. So I agree. The grey areas are really, really important to have looked at there. Terry, if you are not swearing, then you are not playing football. I like swearing. I'm not talking about swearing in general on the pitch as adults. I'm talking about swearing at the referee. So if you say to the referee, fuck you should be sent off. I don't like seeing it. Bruno Fernandes has a red card personality. He he ain't very nice. That I kind of like his annoyance at his teammates when things don't go right. The way he is with the referees, it annoys me because my view is you're not making the referee your friend, bro. Like you need to make the referee like you to get
Well,
away.
that's why when he was rolling around on the ground when Leeds went ahead and scored the goal, it was kind of like you're never getting that. A player that has, has maybe a different personality gets that, but he was rolling around like really asking for that foul and they were never giving it to him. So I do think Bruno does things where I'm like, okay, like you have an attitude, like you really, really do. He definitely is a great player for Man United, but he is for me, he's annoying. Like he really is.
I know,
But
and you said that many times. I mean, this is the point though. Back to the conspiracy theory thing. Bruno is getting less and less go his way because of his attitude. And I'm saying, well, I think that the thing is when it comes to a Scott McTominay is I think Scott McTominay he's got a better relationship with the referees and I think you win more. I think it goes down to individual cases in that regard. A comment here from Matt says, okay, out of these 4 options, would you run a dressing room through fear, love, fear, or fear? Love, fear. So I want them to love and respect me, but know that if they screw me over, they should be shitting their pants. That's probably how I'd look at that one there. This has just been sent to me. Arsenal.
oh my
Love
gosh,
it.
come on.
Love it. That's how some people look when they say it. But Jay, I absolutely appreciate your time today. Thank you very, very much indeed. Viewers, we're back live after we began live after Man United Atletico, but we will be covering the Premier. I'm still annoyed they put more Premier League games on when there's Champions League games on. It's an atrocity. It should be on tomorrow, these other Premier League games. Move the other games to Sunday. But we'll be covering all the games tonight. So of course, big games for Tottenham, a big game for Liverpool versus Leeds as well. So we're covering all of that tonight on the terrace, taking calls on all of that tonight on the terrace. So make sure you're tuning in. Smash the like button before you leave. Make sure you go check out our podcast as well. The link for that's pinned to our live comment section. Go check it out. It's available on most podcast platforms. We've got about 40 episodes up on there now or something like that. So go check them out. Have a little listen. Until next time, everybody, thank you. Jess, pleasure as always.
Thanks for having me.
No worries. Everyone who's tuned in, love you loads.